see what we see, it still doesn't make a difference, because if you don't see us as human beings, what you see ain't gonna make no difference about what we do. The beautiful thing is, here we get a chance to rehearse some of the ideas that have been deeply embedded in our own consciousness, point to deeply entrenched characteristics of the American democratic scene that need to be uprooted and at least examined, and then be able to argue in reasonable fashion about competing claims of what makes sense in America. When it comes to race, the reality is America has been founded upon principles of racial inequality. Is that any controversy in that statement anymore? Do we know that when the founding fathers made their declarations and their constitutions and their Bill of Rights, they didn't include people of color? They certainly didn't have women in mind. You had to be a white male property owner in order to qualify as an American citizen, and it seems to be that way in many instances now, that we don't get recognition as equal members of American society. That stuff is old and ancient. It didn't start with Ferguson. It didn't start with Officer Darren Wilson shooting down an unarmed young man named Michael Brown. It didn't start with the police choking to death Mr. Garner. It didn't begin with Tamir Rice being pulled up upon by a police car and with a trigger hair response of a police person. Those were metaphors and analogies and stereotypes and unconscious bigotries that were collecting to gang up on him. That's what informs so many people. The barrel of a gun is dangerous because what's being shot out are bullets that are motivated by deeply entrenched unconscious bias that continues to inform what people believe now. You're shooting. And America loves the past except when it comes to people of color. Can't get enough Thomas Jefferson. And I ain't mad. TJ was a great guy. Can't get enough of Aaron Burr. Can't get enough of Hamilton, and that's all great. But when it comes to talking about what happened 10, 15, 20 years ago that is not so great and not so prideful and maybe ignominious, then we ain't got no remembrance of that. We don't remember. Why can't you people get over it? We live, as Gore Vidal said, in the United States of amnesia. And the theme song is provided by Barbra Streisand. I know y'all don't know who Barbra Streisand is. You young people. Shake it off. Just shake it off. I love Taylor Swift. She owed Kanye some dope. Kanye made her big. But let me get on task here. Barbra Streisand said, what's too painful to remember, we simply choose to forget. And so, as I think with you this morning, when we think about the issue of race, we got to talk about the past, we got to talk about the present, and we got to talk about the future. The past is critical because without understanding where we have come from, we do not know where we're heading. And where we have come from is deeply, profoundly troubling because America would rather sweep it under the carpet. It is not that we are here to point fingers at people. We are not here to talk about individuals who are responsible. We're talking about collective obligations to ideals, practices, and principles that are often not dealt with in an explicit fashion. And because they're not dealt with in an explicit fashion, many of the people who live in the present are not aware that stuff was going on in the past that was funky. And then when they deal with the past, they do revisionist historiography. Like, that ain't how I remembered it. They talk about Ronald Reagan. I was there. Trust me, dog, it didn't go down like that. But you know how that is. When the remedies of the system ain't no telling, will I love them, will I do some? And so the history is critical to race, because if you don't have a sense of what came, what before you, you don't know what you're dealing with now. And what came before us is the demonization of people who fell outside of the pale of white identity. And it was a narrow construction of white identity. It wasn't a deep and profound and complicated conception of whiteness that was multi-variegated and multi-hued and multifactorial. It was plain and simple. And that sense of whiteness was about the fact that even if you came from Europe, or you came from Poland, or you came from Italy, or you were Italian or Lithuanian or Jewish, the reality is America in its own racial crucible pulverized different and distinct ethnicities and remade them into whiteness. Now, I know y'all know that. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but the choir got to rehearse too.
That's right.
And so, when we think about that, whiteness has been constructed against blackness and brownness and red and yellow and other multiracial identities, and those of us who try to step forward and reclaim the legacy of our lost participation, or at least the recognition of our participation in the shaping of America, we are arguing against stream. Why? Because America has streamlined its consciousness and doesn't understand how it derived benefit from our association with us, and as a result of that doesn't understand the debt it owes us to not only our forbearance and not burning this thing down, but also in our ability to give intellectual credibility and validation to the ideal of democracy, because without us, you ain't gonna figure out how to do it. We are the embodiment of the American dream. Stop killing and murdering and denying us. Stop choking us. Stop denying the oxygen of possibility to us. Understand that we are you, and without us, you cannot be all that you are meant to be. So we realize that out of many one, e pluribus unum, you can't have that credo unless you got the many. And in American history, we realize that race has operated in a certain paralyzing and poisonous function and fashion. It has denied legitimacy and validity to individuals who happen not to be white. And even white brothers and sisters have been subject to the vicious and acrimonious spread of white supremacy. What do we mean by white supremacy? Not the pointing of fingers and saying, aha, you white folk, not at all. It is about the conscious or unconscious belief or investment in the inherent inferiority or superiority of one group to another. The beauty of white supremacy is it ain't got to have nobody in charge in order for the machine to keep operating. And that's why when we speak about this, it's very nervous. It's crazy making to America. America would rather forget. Let's not deal with this. Why keep rehearsing it? Well, why keep talking about the Constitution? You weren't there when it was constructed. Why talk about the Declaration of Independence? You wasn't even born. And so the reality is that that history is critical. Why? Because we understand the beautiful ideals that motivated us, the impetus toward freedom that made this nation become what it is today. But unless we recognize that everybody wasn't included in that vision, you wasn't dealing with everybody. You were dealing with some everybody's. And now everybody is at the table asking for a spot. Can we sit down? Can we get in the cafeteria of opportunity? Can we pull from your own particular bins our possibilities? So in America, we must recognize that past, but we got to also talk about the present. It ain't as if when it comes to race that we done dealt with all that. Thought we had been there and done black. We're post-racial. We have a black president. He's a great guy, but dog, one guy living in public housing can't solve the problem. Now, if you're going to live in public housing, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue is the place for you to be. But one black man can't solve the problem. That's like saying when Hillary Clinton becomes president in a couple years, if that occurs, that sexism is gone. That don't mean that. So why is it that we think that the presence in the White House of an extraordinary human being who is highly intelligent, highly articulate, capable of being forbearing, because you know some of us would have snapped. Man, you at the press conference, you said what? swagaliciousness. Man, because he got a beautiful, brilliant wife, got a beautiful, brilliant kids. But he's scared too. He can't talk about race either. He got to get lost in grammatical constructions that are infelicitous. Talk about people got an impression that things are wrong, and we got a sense that something ain't just. Homie, speak clearly. It's deeper than an impression. It's more profound than a sensibility, or it's our sense that things are wrong. Things are empirically verifiable as wrong. Yes. So now we believe that because we have one great example and representative of blackness, that all peoples of color will be recognized. It ain't true. The irony is, even under a great president like Mr. Obama, record numbers, especially of Latino people, have been deported. Oh, it gets tough up in here. Tough when we deal with the truth in the present, that we can have black faces that represent empires of American society that undermine and subvert the very principles that people of color have fought for so long. How do we deal with that irony? How do we deal with that contradiction? How do we deal with that conflict? Because we are invested in principles that outlast persons. No one individual can be the sum total of our experiences here in America. We have to be deeply invested in change, not in one person's presence that represents the payoff to people of color of all the investment we have made in the possibility of the American dream. You and I must realize that in the present we are struggling with many of our white brothers and sisters who are students and teachers who are not familiar intimately with the struggles that we have waged in defense of principles and practices that they benefit from, but have not acknowledged our contribution to. So, people say you're here because of affirmative action. No, I'm here because you closed the door, I knocked it down, you wondered how the hell I'm still up in here. Don't get mad because I can do both the formal and highfalutin and the vernacular and the informal. You want me to master that, I'll do it. You want me to master tennis, and I'll do it. Though much is taken, much abides. And though we are not now that strength which in old days moved earth and heaven, that which we are, we are. One equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. I can do that, but I also know a great philosopher named Sean Carter. All my teachers couldn't reach me, and my mama couldn't beat me hard enough to match the pain of my pop not seeing me so. With that disdain in my membrane, got on my pimp game, blank the world, my defense came. I know about Gray's elegy in a courtyard, full many a gem of purest ray serene, the dark unfathomed caves of ocean bare, full many of flowers born to blush unseen and waste its sweetness in the desert air. But I know about O'Shea Jackson. Y'all don't know O'Shea. Y'all stuck on, I don't know, Superman that, well, I don't know. Blank the police coming straight from the underground. A young brother got it bad because I'm brown and not the other color. So police think they have the authority to kill a minority. Blank that because I ain't the one for a punk blank blank with a badge and the gun to be beat down. And thrown in jail, we can go toe to toe in the middle of a cell. Messing with me because I'm a teenager with a little bit of gold and a pager. Searching my car, looking for the product, thinking every brother is selling narcotics. That's real true. So now, in the present, we have racial amnesia colliding with a lack of recognition of black and brown and red and yellow humanity. People of color, we are human beings. We have to keep reminding America, marches in the streets, that we are human beings. Do you know a study came out that said, especially for young people of color, and specifically black kids, that kids are not seen as kids but as older? Secondly, they are denied their humanity. This is why Tamir Rice in Cleveland can be driven upon by a police car and with bare fair warning shot down, mowed, and murdered in the streets. This is why the policeman looked at Mike